we're going to the cost of high inflation. So we're going to know what inflation is: a persistent rise in the price of goods and services. So what are the costs of having high inflation within the economy? Number one, growth and unemployment. I wrote high inflation is hard to predict, which means both firms and consumers may have difficulty in terms of investing and spending, which means low level of output and spending. This will lead to falling GDP, which in turn may lead to higher unemployment. Because there's inflation, both firms and consumers, they won't be able to predict what happens in the future. They don't know what happens about price tomorrow after tomorrow. As a result of that, they might not be able to spend as they used to spend. So consumers will not want to spend. Are you with me? Consumers may not want to spend because they don't know what the prices could be in the future. So then because they have difficulty in spending, this simply means firms will not be able to make more as they used to make. And firms will not also be able to invest in capital goods, which would have allowed them to have efficiency in terms of production. So which simply means both consumers and producers would not be able to predict what happens about the future. Then spending will fall. And as soon as consumers are not buying, producers are not making revenue, output would fall. GDP within the economy would fall. And if GDP is falling, then unemployment would increase. So a high inflation rate might bring about high unemployment rate. Is it clear, please?
Yes.
So for unemployment to reduce, then here, most of the time, because unemployment is linked to inflation, a high inflation rate reduces unemployment. But if unemployment reduces, inflation rate might increase. Did you get the point I'm making or not? Unemployment and inflation, they have relationship. So because if unemployment is increasing, it makes the value of goods and services to fall based on the fact that people will not have income to buy. Then firms will not have any other choice than to reduce the price. But if the government of a country is targeting a low unemployment rate, there might be inflation. Do you get the point here? But here we're not going to talk about inflation and unemployment. We're talking about inflation which leads to a fall in GDP. And the fall in GDP would bring about unemployment because output is not increasing. And if output is not increasing, how will employment increase? Do you get it? If output is increasing, businesses will be able to export more.
Hello, Monsieur.
Hi, sir.
Hello.
So I think the point is clear about that. So growth and unemployment. With high inflation rate, growth would not increase. GDP would fall. And if GDP is falling, unemployment would increase. That's the first point. Then the second one, competitiveness. I wrote, high inflation will have a negative effect on balance of payment. If inflation rises in one economy faster than another, and the value of currency doesn't change on foreign currency, foreign market, then exports will become less competitive and imports more competitive. As domestic consumers may increase their importation, bringing about balance of payment current account deficits. So the competitiveness is this. If inflation rate increases in Libya, and Libya does exports, maybe oil, but there's high inflation rate in Libya, other countries that do the same export as Libya will become more internationally competitive than Libya. So Libya will be witnessing a fall in its exportation. Do you get the point I'm making here?
Yes.
Which simply means there will be increase in importation for Libya. Based on the fact that the inflation rate in Libya is increasing compared to the inflation rate of other countries. So Libyans would also prefer to buy from foreign businesses. So therefore, imports will increase in Libya than export, bringing about current account deficits. Do you understand what inflation rate will be here? What high inflation will do there? It reduces competitiveness of a country. And if competitiveness reduces in terms of international competitiveness, it means exports would reduce, imports would increase. Is it clear?
Yes.
The third one, redistributional cost. For redistributional cost, I wrote, a high inflation will lead to income and wealth being redistributed between households, firms, and government. If inflation rate is not adjusted with taxes, then the burden of tax will increase, transferring resources from taxpayer to the government. So if inflation rate is being adjusted with variables like taxes, we call it indexation. We'll get there anyway. We call it indexation. So if there's no indexation, it means firms will be paying more taxes individuals will be paying more taxes, and as a result, government will be making more. Do you get it?
Yes.
Government will be making more, then households and firms will be vulnerable, they will be worse off. That is the point here. So there will be redistributional cost because firms and individuals will be paying more taxes than government. Then government will be making more. That is what the point is. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Any question about that?
No, sir.
So we'll go to the next one, which is psychological.
And political costs.
Yeah, for psychological and political cost, I wrote, inflation makes people feel they are worse off, even if their income increases by more than the rate of inflation. Unexpected inflation disturbs the distribution of income. Changes in governance may also be accompanied by inflation. With inflation, high inflation makes people feel that, oh, whatever, with inflation, there might be indexation, which means wages and taxes has been adjusted with inflation. But the point is, based on the fact that the price of goods continuously rise, you will feel that you are paying more than what you used to pay for. Despite the fact that your wage has been adjusted with inflation, but you will still feel you're paying more than what, because it's just a side thing that the price it was not the same price as yesterday. The price is increasing. So you feel you are paying more than what you used to pay. You would have forgotten that it has been adjusted to what your income level is. Because you earn your salary at the end of the month.
Mm-hmm.
But inflation is about what you buy daily.
Mm-hmm.
So you wouldn't think about the increase that you've gotten in your salary.
Mm-hmm.
You only think about the increase that you pay in the cost of buying goods or services. That is psychological cost there. Do you get it?
Yes.
Also, with high inflation, it also makes government, sometimes when there's change in governance, we don't know what the new government will bring about. We don't know what will happen with this new government. We don't know what the policy the new government will bring about. Prices might be high. Demand might increase as a result of that, bringing about increasing price. Maybe the new government, there are speculations that, the new government is going to come up with this policy, that policy. People want to buy goods and services right now.
So we do inflation.
The demand increases, then inflation. Is it clear?
Yes.
That is psychological and political cost.
Sure.
Then we go to shoe leather cost now. Thank you. For shoe leather cost, here I wrote, unstable prices means consumers will lack knowledge about the pricing system. Therefore, may need to move as far as possible to find a better bargain before buying a product. So the point is, with persistent rise in prices of goods and services, we don't know what the best price is because we lack information, we lack knowledge about what prices are, because price continues to change every now and then. It's increasing. So for me, I wouldn't know what the best price is. So I might have to move from one shop to another, to be able to have a better bargain before buying. So if shop A is selling for 5, I might have to check shop B, shop C, if I'm going to find a price lower than 5. So that is a shoe leather cost. You continue to move and move to find a bargain in terms of before you buy. Is it clear?
Yes.
Good. Then the next one, menu cost. For menu cost, I wrote, if there's inflation, restaurants have to continuously change their menus to show increased prices. Also, shops have to change their price tags. This increases cost. So, because there's inflation, it means we have to continuously change our price tags. Restaurants will have to change their menus every now and then. This is cost because they have to use paper. And it's someone's job, which is adding up. It takes time. And whatever takes time takes money. Do you understand menu cost here?
Yes, sir.
So these are impacts or costs of high inflation to the economy. Any question about that? Good. So we go on to ways to reduce inflation now. Are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, ways to reduce inflation, I wrote, there's one called anticipated inflation, which means we are able to predict the rate of inflation in the future. So if you are able to do that, it allows you to use indexation. So I'm going to read further. Ways to reduce our inflation rates. Anticipated inflation. This allows economic actors, such as firms, individuals, governments, to plan for the future and adjust their decisions to take inflation into consideration or into account. One way to do this is through indexation. I said that earlier. For indexation, is where economic variables like wages or taxes are increased in line with inflation. So indexation eases the pain of inflation, but it cannot be considered as a cure of it. Thus, inflation may obstruct government attempts to reduce inflation. So indexation is a way to reduce the burden of inflation. So with anticipated inflation, we are able to predict the rate of inflation in the future, and that allows economic agents or actors to adjust inflation rate with wages and taxes. Do you get the point here? So if economic actors are able to do this, so as soon as there is a persistent rise in prices of goods and services, it will not affect them significantly because they have already prepared for it. Do you get the point I'm making here? So with adjustment being made, it means if prices increases in the future, we have already made adjustment for them. So whatever price increase, it will not affect the economy. It will not affect demand within the economy. And firms will not also be affected. That is if there's anticipated inflation. Then there's indexation, which has allowed us to prepare our mind towards an increase in the future through wages or taxes. Do you get the point here?
Yes.
But indexation does not solve high inflation rate. It only reduces the burden. It only reduces the impact. Do you get the point here? So high inflation rate cannot be solved. But with indexation, at least we prepare ahead of time and we are able to, readjust ourselves. We are able to readjust things to go in line with the persistent rise in price. That is what indexation will do. Is it clear?
Yes.
But the problem about indexation again is that with indexation, it obstructs government attempts to reduce inflation. How? If government has planned to reduce or to increase taxes or reduce taxes to adjust a rate or a high rate of inflation, it means firms will have to pay more to workers because wages have to increase. It's indexation, right? With indexation, we are adjusting wages or taxes so that it goes in line with inflation rate, right? So if wages are adjusted, it means firms have to pay more to their workers. So paying more means increasing cost of production for firms. That would also bring back inflation rate, high inflation rate due to cost push inflation. Do you get it? So indexation might obstruct government intervention, bringing about government failure. So we can call it unintended consequence. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about cost of inflation?
No.
No. So now we go into the cost of deflation. So for the cost of deflation, so for the cost of deflation, I wrote, a percent fall in prices may lead to the following. One, a fall in aggregate demand. What is aggregate demand? The sum of the total demand within the economy. So a fall in prices can bring about a fall in aggregate demand. How? I wrote, with deflation, consumers' confidence tends to be low. They are concerned about the future. So they know if they don't buy today, they can buy tomorrow at a cheaper rate. Do you get the point here?
Yes.
So buying tomorrow, that means they have deferred their consumption to tomorrow, which means demand for goods and services will fall today. If demand for goods and services fall today, the aggregate demand will fall. Consumption has reduced. That is a fall in aggregate demand. Do you get it or not?
Yes.
A persistent fall in prices of goods and services means consumers may feel like buying tomorrow instead of buying today. So the aggregate demand today would fall. That is the first point about deflation. Is it clear?
Mm-hmm.
So if aggregate demand is falling, what happens? Unemployment would increase.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's cyclical. A fall in aggregate demand will lead to cyclical unemployment. We talked about it. Will lead to cyclical unemployment. And if there's cyclical unemployment, it's not good for the economy. So that's the first point anyway. The second cost of deflation is lower investment and confidence of firms. With falling aggregate demand, business revenue will fall. This may lead to lack of confidence and low investment. Because aggregate demand is falling, right? So if aggregate demand is falling, firms will not sell as they used to sell. Yes or no?
Mm-hmm.
So their confidence level, they will lack confidence. and that might bring about a low investment. They won't want to invest because they don't even have revenue. They don't make revenue as they used to make. So what's the essence of investment? So there will be low investment in the economy, and that will bring about low GDP. Clear?
Yes, sir.
The third one, the effect on asset value. Deflation encourages households to save rather than spend. With deflation, because with deflation we defer our consumption, yes or no? So which means instead of spending now, we save now for the future, because saving is the money we did not spend. Yes or no?
Yes.
So with deflation, people will save more than spending. As a result of that, the value for assets would fall because nobody wants to buy.
Yes.
Thereby, asset value would fall. Do you get the point I'm making here?
Yes, sir.
So, a fall in aggregate demand is likely to cause cyclical unemployment, especially if workers are reluctant to accept nominal wage cuts. Values of assets may reduce. So, with a fall in aggregate demand, firms might have to reduce wages. Not real wages here, nominal wages. That means the wage that has not been adjusted with inflation. So, workers would be reluctant. I won't allow anyone to reduce my pay. Do you understand? If it was the real wage, yes, it's fine because it has been adjusted with inflation. Now you can reduce it because there's deflation. But my nominal wage, you cannot. Because nominal wage is your wage that has not been adjusted. Workers will feel reluctant to allow employers to adjust their wages. As a result, the value of assets will fall because nobody has money. Asset value would reduce. Do you understand the point
Yes,
here?
sir.
People will not be able to spend as they used to spend. Firms will not be able to invest as they used to invest. So demand within the economy would fall, making values of assets to fall also. Is it clear?
Yes.
And the last one, increasing exports. Why will a fall in prices bring about increasing exports? I wrote. With persistent fall in the prices of goods, firms which target export markets may also gain as their goods become internationally competitive. Now that the prices of goods are falling in this country, the prices of exports would fall, which means foreign customers would want to buy from us. That increases our competitiveness internationally. Do you get the point here? So exports would increase.
Yes.
But what happens to domestic consumption? Domestic consumption would fall because consumers would rather save than spend during deflation. Yes or no? So domestic firms would be worse off, but firms that are selling internationally will be better off. Is it clear?
Yes.
Any question about that?
No.
So that's about the cost of deflation. So we'll go on to the benefit of low inflation. Are you there?
Yes.
Now we'll go to the benefits of low inflation. I wrote, the central bank of many countries will target inflation around 2%. 2% at least. 2% inflation is fine. It's in between deflation
Per year.
on prices. 2%.
Yeah, I know. On the prices.
On the basket of goods.
Per year.
Yes.
Okay.
So because it's always going to be on the basket of goods. So if it's 2% inflation rate, it's fine because it's in between deflation and high inflation. So I wrote, the central bank of many countries will target inflation around 2%. This is a very low rate of inflation, but it is still positive because price is increasing. Firms have to make profit, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
And without inflating price, there's no profit. And profit is an incentive to start up a business. So the reason why 2% is considered desirable as follows: one, it avoids the problem associated with high inflation and deflation, as it gives policymakers the opportunity, the room to adjust if inflation is increasing or reducing. When you put it at 2%, if the possibility of if inflation rate is increasing, then it can be adjusted. And if it's reducing, you can also adjust because it's still in 2%. You would know what to do next. So that's one of the reasons why we should have a desirable inflation rate, which is around 2% or 2.5. Then the second point is that it allows those who borrow to finance consumption or investment to repay back as soon as possible. We said inflation, a low inflation rate means prices of borrowing and prices of goods and services are reducing. Do you understand the point? So it means goods and services are still affordable for people to buy. firms will be able to invest, consumers will be able to consume, consumers will be able to firms will be able to invest in capital goods, consumers will be able to invest on consumer goods with low inflation rate. So that means demand within the economy would increase. Is it clear? Any question about that?
No.
And if aggregate demand increases within the economy, that means employment rate will increase. Is it clear?
Yes.
So that ends inflation. Thank you.